Hello and welcome to Eye on South Asia. I'm Bhavna Vanan.
And I'm Sunil Hali.
Every week we'll talk about news, views, and all the latest happenings with South Asians living in North America. Let's get started with our first story. And this we are following up with last week's kind of a negative start for the first week of the new year, but the bombing of the mosque and Hindu temple, as well as a couple of other sites in Queens, New York.
Yeah, it was a clearly dastardly act, as you would call it. And this gentleman who has been since then arrested, there were 5 exact locations. And he says he had something against them because he had different kind of experiences over the last few years and he had marked them to take his revenge. Mm-hmm. He has been picked up. His name is Ray Lazier Langend, and he has been arrested, and the 5 locations he's identified that he bombed them. Obviously those crude bombs, I believe he went to Starbucks and picked up their bottles, what is called Frappuccino.
Yeah, the Frappuccino, and he
made the crude bombs out of it.
Yeah, he used like cocktails and alcohol, beer bottles to,
4 of them were Frappuccino bottles, and one of them was a beer bottle.
Right.
And he picked up these locations, like I said, because he had something against them. He says the mosque, which is the Al Quail Benevolent Association Mosque, he said once I wanted to use the restroom, they would not allow me, so he had something against it. Another time he had some bad experience with the Hindu temple, and that was 5 years ago. Even though the current priest does not recollect anything like that, Ramesh. Then there is a Delhi in Jamaica where he once went to pick up a bottle without obviously paying for it, and they stopped him and he left, and he told them very clearly that one of these days, guys, I'm going to come back and take my revenge. So these are the 5 locations he picked up. Now timing may be just coincidence, that is end of the year as we know, and kind of make a sensation out of it. He's been arrested since then. And he is actually an unemployed tow truck driver, and he could be sentenced up to 25 years. Bhavna, even though the unemployment rate in the US has gone down in last, towards the end of the year, by some numbers it is almost down to 8.5%. But I think there is some kind of connection with him being unemployed. And, this kind of frustrations come in, and that time logic doesn't work, and you remember all your old frustrations with location A, location B. Essentially, I think it is really emanating from the fact that he's unemployed.
That could have a lot to do with, just how people are thinking professionally versus using personal grievances and, vengeances to use their time, basically.
See, he's not a very educated guy, so you can't expect him to think rationally. So for people like that, when they get frustrated, they get to drinking, they get to taking revenge. And, look, if somebody didn't allow you to use their restroom, doesn't mean you're going to bomb their mosque.
Exactly.
But in any case, he's been arrested very quickly, and he is going to go through the process, and there is a chance that he may get up to 25 years of sentence here.
Right.
Thinking about the jobs, as we were talking about, President Obama has started his, what we call technically a re-election campaign, and the populist policies are being talked about. He's moving away from the economy and including the Middle East. Now he's talking about jobs. And he's holding, actually, as we speak, this week he held an American Jobs Insourcing event at the White House. Where he is expected to have very popular companies like padlock maker Master Lock, furniture company Lincoln Furniture, software application developer Galaxy, and companies like DuPont. These companies are being put together under one room and to discuss how they're going to bring jobs back. And typically President Obama has taken a position that we are giving out jobs to other countries, especially to China and India, a lot, and in the meantime, the people are losing jobs here, and when they're losing jobs, they don't have the money to spend. It is hurting the economy further.
Right.
So he's kind of promoting and propagating that we should be actually not outsourcing jobs. And there was a quick survey done by a group from the Indian Express in Chicago especially, and there were some findings they found out from, they talked to some of the software professionals. He said, look, I have not really heard much, but my salary is stagnated, there is no growth, because software is a very hot area. Of course, the jobs are being outsourced to India and China, but he said, I am still okay, but I can't grow. Then they talked to another unemployment call center executive, and she said, I used to work at the call center, but now my job has gone to a call center in India. And thank God my husband had his job, so I'm still able to live, but obviously she lost her income. Pharmacy owners are talking about that the big corporate giants may not have been affected as much, but the smaller players, smaller businesses are hurting. So all this comes down to now kind of, earlier it was outsourcing, and now, as they call it, insourcing, and typically in the election year. I think this is where he wants to take the attention of a common man. Look, I'm trying to bring the jobs back, and the unemployment has gone down to 8.5%.
Right, and because this is on the heels of his re-election campaign, he's trying to, put forth that he's making this effort, and these companies can kind of vouch for his efforts and say, look, we've been working for this effort under the Obama administration, so we're headed in the right direction. And that's exactly what he said in his own words. So.
Well, let's see how it is accepted by a common man, because there was a theory at one time, by outsourcing the job, we'll cut down on the costs, and then the money will be saved and it will be used inward. And now we are saying the jobs are gone out and people are getting unemployed, they don't have the income. So where do they spend? The economy is going down. So it's like a catch-22 situation here. But in any case, we'll see how Obama uses this tactics or this populist re-election campaign that he's talking about. On the other hand, India's finance minister, who was here for the global CEO meet in September in Washington, D.C., Mr. Pranab Mukherjee, he's the senior most politician in the Indian government today, and he is the finance minister. He has been in every position that you can think of except being the Prime Minister of India. Very respected person, very thinking person. And he is meeting in Chicago on January 28th with the Chicago Council for Global Affairs. Now, this group has been there since 1922, and their interest is to discuss about, how to kind of make the businesses global. And the finance minister will be addressing a group and kind of removing the fears which have slightly come to the minds of investors in America, especially, who are looking at India. What happened to the Walmart issue in December first week when the FDI was not allowed. He's here to kind of give more confidence to the people that the UPA, which is his party's group, which is running the government, they are continuing with the reformist policy. So they'll be always looking at the investment opportunities by people, including from US in India, and he continues to say that India remains one of the fastest and the most safest area for growing the economy globally. And he's obviously there. I think you recall we also reported that he's also coming for the Swami Vivekananda's birthday celebrations, when the second chair will be installed at the University of Chicago.
Right.
So
yeah, it's definitely important when things happen like this, the FDI and the retail situation, that there are people to uplift the image once again and give faith to the world scale, and assure people that investments and India is still a viable economy and that sort of thing.
Vibrant economy, not just viable economy, certainly is. Right. But like I said, including the nuclear deal that India did with the US, and now with the liability issue, a lot of companies US are still very cautious in investing in India on that nuclear power. So all these things, when they come in between, they become a deterrent for an economy which is just taking off and actually taken off, and providing an opportunity to companies in America or in Canada or anywhere else, a very, very interesting way of growing their business, which we'll touch back later when we talk about other areas of trade between US and India. While we talk about India, Bhavna, we always talk in the same breath about China. Now, India and China are otherwise very closely connected. You know, it's in the scale of about like $50 billion a year trading between the two countries. But somehow or the other, the after effects of the 1962 war between the two countries has never gone away from the mind of Chinese. They still have an issue with a certain part of India, and in that particularly about Dalai Lama. They have a sore point about it, and because of that the countries come together and suddenly you hear good things about it and then something goes down. And here we have a situation. Just last week, two diamond merchants who were held for quite some time over there because of whatever alleged practices, they were released. So finally there was jubilation in their families, you saw everywhere. But now there were two more Indian, actually they are the employees of a Yemeni company, and they were in China in a smaller area which is actually 186 miles away from Shanghai. It's called Yiwu. And they were arrested, and they were brought to a court for trial, and the India's counsel, who is the diplomat placed in Shanghai, S. Balachandran, was called to represent them or to be there on behalf of the government of India, because he is the counsel, and he suffers from diabetes. And you know, in diabetes typically you need to eat something after a certain period of time.
Right.
And when he was in the court, there is this allegation that he was not given a break to go and get food or even his medicines. And the government India again is very upset, because this is the man from Ministry of External Affairs. Now, when it was reported to the Chinese authorities, they said, look, this is not such a big deal, because there is an issue between the Yemeni company, which has a Chinese partner, and they have some issues with the Chinese supplier, who in turn have not been paid for whatever outstandings are there, and they took it up.
They're taking it out on the Indian employees.
These are just two employees of the Yemeni companies, and the actual man in charge is kind of
he
disappeared,
held accountable. Exactly.
And he disappeared. And something like this happened with the diamond merchant guys also. So the spokesperson from the Chinese government brought up very clearly, look, this is something it's not to be taken that seriously. It's not such a big deal. It was at a very low level of a small district. In fact, the moral of the story here is that when you do business with China, and especially with the smaller companies, with the interior part of the China, you need to be very careful, because something goes wrong. I'm not sure if they'll be picking up the people from there, your Chinese partner. They may be chasing you or putting you behind the bars.
Right. And there's also concern that, you know, the Chinese authorities are not taking such incidences seriously enough.
Look, it's from their point of view, it's a very small issue. If you go to India in a small place, let's say called Saharanpur or somewhere in Kanpur or Nagpur, smaller second, third city, somebody has a factory and he's a supplier of goods to somebody from wherever, from Russia, and the people come from Russia down there and they have not been paid. Obviously, they'll be reporting to the local court, and local court will pick them up, and it cannot be made a national issue. But because of the way our relationship is positioned, every small thing gets blown up
into a political situation.
Exactly. So interesting, but thank God everything has come to peace. Everybody is kind of taken care of, and I hope such incidents can be avoided when people do business in and out of China, understanding that these things can happen with them.
Exactly.
Bhavana, the GOPIO, which is a global organization of people of Indian organization, which is from the Indians from all over the world. You know, there are about 30 million Indians all over the world, and this organization was formed to represent their case, and they take up very hot issues. And they honored this time the Trinidad and Tobago's Prime Minister Kamala Prasad Bisesar, and she was the chief guest at the Pravasi Samman Awards this week, last week actually now.
Right.
And she was invited to Kolkata, where this memorial's first anniversary was being celebrated, and she was again the guest of honor. Of course, there were people from other countries like Suriname, USA, Canada, UK, Netherlands, Switzerland, essentially the people who have left India. Now, Trinidad and Tobago and Guyana are very, very core to the first immigration, and they say it's almost like 1834 when the first immigration started, and this group of laborers who left from Kolkata or Bihar, or some of them I've heard even from Chennai, who moved to these countries, and this was kind of a coming together for them.
Right.
And the Prime Minister was there, and it was a very emotional moment where she was felicitated, obviously, as a symbol of India,
and definitely honored for their ancestry, in terms of what their history is, coming into terms with that. So,
right.
Yeah. Well, we're going to have to take a short break, but we'll be right back on Eye on South Asia. Stay tuned.